Welcome to my unboxing and first look at the CM Storm Scout 2. This is the second Scout, and it brings with it some incremental upgrades and actually looks pretty freaking cool from the outside of the box anyway, but we've yet to get it open. So let's start with what Cooler Master has to say for themselves. First of all, there is one 120mm red LED fan. Okay, 7 expansion slots, so you won't be putting any XL ATX motherboards in here, but 99% of the boards out there are standard ATX or MATX anyway. Slide out dust filter, large rubber grommets for improved cable management. Okay, 7 hard drive bays, 1 2.5-inch bracket included, removable hard drive cage for long graphics card installation. Okay, top exhaust vent to release heat, steel reinforced carrying handles. Excellent. Tool-free optical drives, USB 3 ports for fast charging, and file transfer, dual 120mm fan support. And mesh design top line circle. Let's open it up and have a look. So Cooler Master has a number of different series of cases that are specifically optimized for cooling and gaming and all of that good stuff. So the Scout is more along the value lines compared to something like, a half X or whatever else like that, which isn't to say that the Scout, just because it doesn't have the half or high airflow moniker, is not to say that it is not perfectly capable of keeping your system cool. So we've got some, panel installation guide. Let's not worry too much about that. And let's get the case opened up here. Oh, I like the handle already. So if you guys do or don't attend LAN parties, honestly, it doesn't really matter, because either way, a handle is a really handy thing to have for your case, because if you're unboxing it, you might find that you want to pick it up at some point. The handle is extremely sturdy. Actually, I'm really impressed by that. And it has a rubberized grip on it that makes it much more comfortable to use than plastics, just straight plain plastic handle. So you can see the flexibility there, but also the fact that there is no give to it whatsoever. So there's a metal core here with a rubber coating on the outside. It's great. So you can easily carry your system around like this, especially if you're stronger than me. It's not quite like the handles on the Cosmos 2, which have those beautiful metal bars running down both sides of the top of it. But, I mean, this is a more value-oriented case again than the Cosmos 2, so we can't criticize it too much for that. So we've got fully stealthed front I/O. There's your power and reset switches, as well as control for the LEDs. Right there is where you'll find your 2 USB 3.0 ports, 2 USB 2.0 ports, as well as your front panel audio. Okay, on the front of the case, full mesh, so 3 5.25-inch bays, and then filtered. See, you can see there's a filtered layer here, as well as a honeycomb mesh layer. So the full front of it is mesh, and the bottom actually has a little bit of room for intake as well. We're going to try popping that off and see what we find here, just for lulz, right? Okay, so here we find another couple of 120mm fan mounts, so that will give us lots of airflow from that front honeycomb here. We've also got the cages for our 5.25-inch bays, and not a whole lot else at the front. One of the things I like about this is that it doesn't have any of the front I/O pieces attached to it, because a lot of the time you go to pull this off the case and you end up kind of tugging on those delicate, whoopsie daisies. Speaking of delicate. There we go. Back on. You end up tugging on those delicate wires and potentially damaging them, so I do worry about that. This side panel is pretty straightforward. You can see Cooler Master has bulged out the right side panel a little bit in order to give you extra room for cable management. This is something a lot of cases have started doing. I didn't really like it at first, but I've kind of gotten over it, so won't complain about it too much. It looks like we lost a rubber grommet in shipping, but it's probably on the inside of the case. Not a big deal, that there. Side panel window shows you the good parts. So I'm not a big fan of sort of weird shaped side panel windows. I've seen like L-shaped ones and sort of bizarre stuff like that. I don't mind this because it cuts off things like your optical drives, which you don't want to see, your hard drives, which you don't want to see. Just show you the CPU socket area, your memory. You can also see, from this kind of an angle where you'd normally be looking at it, your graphics card. But instead of taking their window and like drilling holes through it like this, like Antec did with the 1100, they've opted to give you a smaller window and then just regular metal fan grills, which I think is better, actually, because the great thing about these grills is if you do want to see through them, you don't have to put a fan on it. It's fairly you know, fairly transparent. See, I'm gonna stick my arm in, this is awkward. Whereas on those plexi ones, you can't see through it at all because of how thick the plexi is. So when they do the laser cutting on it, it just makes it so almost no matter, unless you're looking at it like dead on, you just can't see through it at all. Taking out the side panel, oh, look at that. Not much flex to that at all, actually. Nice build quality on this. That's one of the easiest ways to tell if a case has gone sort of premium on the materials, or if they've, you know, tried to save a couple bucks on the thickness of the metal, is whether there's a lot of flex. Even with that plexi window in there and all these holes cut out, there's still not a whole lot of flex in there. It feels really good. Alright, let's have a look at the inside of this bad boy. We've got some included accessories. Whoopsie daisies. Let me just grab that. Thank you. Alright, so cable management holes. Here they're using that very, very, very soft, soft rubber here. So almost no matter what you do in terms of bending it and sort of trying to ruin it, it's going to pop right back into place and make it so that you won't see too much of what's on the other side. Remember guys, there's going to be a black side panel on the other side along with all these black cables, which is going to make it extremely stealthy unless you sort of like really go out of your way to wreck it, like rip off one of these pieces or something like that, which I really can't imagine happening. You've got access to all of your usual places. So up here, up here is going to be your 8-pin. Up here is going to be where I would run these down from. So I wouldn't run these through here, I'd run them over here and then bring them down. Up here will get you up to your optical drives. Here will get you to your video cards as well as your 24-pin. And one of the things, again, hey, this is smart. So often you see next to the power supply, you see something this size, and then you see like 3 cable management holes up to the top of the case that are also the same size, which would logically be a bit of a problem because if there's enough cables to run through 3 of these, then you probably need more space at the bottom because there's a lot of cables coming up. So I've run into issues with builds before in the past where there's not really enough room to run all the cables I need through this bottom hole. So they've gone with a much larger one compared to the ones up here. Now the removable cage is from here to here, so that'll leave 3.5-inch bays, even if you do remove it in order to install an extremely long graphics card. And I can't think of any graphics card where you'd need anything longer than about this, even something like a Radeon 6990, which was very, very long. The 2.5-inch adapter can actually be moved around, and then this is actually compatible with up to 2 SSDs. So you can mount one SSD in the top, and then you can flip it over and mount another SSD on the other side using the bottom mounting holes. Side mounting holes, bottom mounting holes. Actually very clever little thing they did. And then you're just using your standard 3.5-inch drive rails. Pop in there and throw that back in wherever you want. Toolless mechanism for the 5.25-inch bays is pretty bog standard. We've seen this before from Cooler Master. And in terms of cooling on the top, let's have a look at what they've got up here. So hold on, we never really checked this out. So it looks like there's a oh, I might need a sec to figure this out, guys. So I got it off just by taking out the plastic tabs, and you can remove it for whatever reason, but I can't think of any reason you'd want to, so we're just gonna put that back in there. It looks like this case doesn't quite have the clearance that we'd need for a dual 120mm radiator in the top. You can see the top of your motherboard is going to be right about here with your VRM and all that. So this is predominantly an air-cooled case, and it's very suitable for that. So let's do a quick summary of where all the cooling is coming from here. So we've got dual 120s in the front with full mesh intake. We've got another 120 in the bottom, which should get some access to air. These aren't the tallest feet I've seen in the past, but we've got a nice rubberized grip. Most people don't use this anyway because your power supply cables are generally there. You've got 2 120mm exhausts in the top, and finally you've got a 120mm exhaust fan in the rear, and this one is LED lit and is wired into the casing so that you can actually turn the LED on and off. Right, and last but not least, your power supply, which has that filtered intake, which was mentioned on the outside of the box, so you can easily remove that, put it back in, no issues there. Oh, yeah, hey, check this out. They got one of those auxiliary PCI bracket things. So if you have a fan controller or whatever else that hooks up to one of these, you don't want to waste one of your valuable PCI brackets in the back, then you don't have to do that. Now, I wonder what happened to that, rubber grommet. Cameraman's pointing at it. There it is. All right, so the rubber grommet was included with our case. It just came out in shipping. No harm, no foul. Let's have a look at the accessories included, and I think we're gonna wrap this up. More 3.5-inch hard drive rails. We've got some zip ties, we've got a speaker, we've got some screws and whatnot. It's basically what you'd expect. So, what do you get with the Scout 2? You get a very capable air cooling case with a very, very awesome built-in steel handle, making it extremely portable, very comfortable to move around. And you also get a pretty darn good looking case with side panel window that shows off the best parts without showing you, hard drives. And I think that pretty much wraps it up. Thank you for checking out this video on the Scout 2 from Cooler Master. Don't forget to subscribe to Linus Tech Tips for more unboxings, reviews, and other computer videos.